I have it on my calendar. Give me one sec.
Okay.
Let's see. 26th through the 28th.
Oh, I was way off.
There is no such thing as June 31st.
Okay, cool. That's why I said it with such hesitation, was because I wasn't sure if there was 31 days in June. But anyways. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Nerd You're Looking For podcast, the now weekly nerd culture podcast that discusses the culture through various segments. My name is Patrick Kuhn, alongside my co-host, as always, that Tyler Hunt. How's it going, man?
It's going really well, man. How are you?
I'm good. I got to see one of my favorite comedians the other night do a show here in Evansville, which is odd because they never really get good guys to come to Evansville because it's kind of a weird town to come and do a show. So it was pretty exciting.
Yeah. Would you like to share who's your favorite comedian? One of your favorite comedians?
Bill Burr. He came to town. It was pretty good. It wasn't as packed as I wanted it to be. Like I was hoping that it would be completely sold out because the only way to get good comedians like that to come to Evansville consistently is if you sell it out. And I was a little disappointed that not as many people showed up, but one of our really great local comedians that I've done a couple of shows with got to do a guest spot, which was really cool. Rachel Goldman, sorry. I'm sorry.
She's just not good enough to remember her name.
No, she was awesome and she killed it. She's great. I think it was pretty cool that he let her do a little guest spot. So
yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, it was fun. Me and my wife really enjoy going to see stand up. So hopefully more good comedians come to Evansville.
When are you going to do stand-up again?
I don't know. It's been so busy with us trying to go weekly and trying to keep up with the blog and work and stuff. It's just really hard. I get to the point where I've done a lot of the same jokes pretty much every time I go on. So it's like I want to write a bunch of new stuff before I go and do a new show. And it's so hard to sit down and find the time to do it. So, but I definitely want to do it and I'm itching to do it, but it's finding the time to actually sit down and write anything. Plus, I like playing Mortal Kombat, so that takes a lot of time, too.
Awesome.
When are you going to do stand-up, Tyler?
Never in my life.
You should. It's fun.
I stage fright. And that's kind of stuff, but no, yeah.
All right, cool. So, if this is your first episode, we start off every episode by just kind of checking in with each other. We call it What We're Into. So, Tyler, what are you into this week?
So, last week, I went and saw a movie early in the week that I was actually kind of excited to see, and it turns out that excitement was not warranted. So
really?
I went and saw Unfriended.
Oh, I heard good things about that.
You're not going to hear good things from me. Well, that's why I was excited about it, is because I thought it looked really innovative, and I thought that it, there were quotes about it on the trailer saying like, "Hey, this movie's actually really great. Like, go see it." And I read a couple positive reviews, but it was really bad.
Oh, yeah?
It's kind of funny. Do you watch Modern Family?
Yeah, of course.
There was an episode a few weeks ago, or maybe like a few months ago, where it's all through the...
Like Skype.
Skype and their
Facebook
phones and messaging and stuff. And that's exactly how this movie was shot. So it made me think of that Modern Family episode. In all fairness, this movie was probably filmed before that episode was.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But it was not good. Yeah, I don't even know how to divulge into it without getting into spoilers, but I liked the way that it was shot, and I thought it was a pretty cool concept, but it just wasn't scary, and it was kind of boring.
Yeah.
So that's my issue with it, I guess.
Well, I'm not a big fan of found footage movies, and I've talked about that before, but it just kind of seemed an interesting way to do sort of a found footage type of movie.
I mean, it's been a while since I've seen a really good horror movie too, and I thought that this might be it, but it wasn't for me at all. And like I said, a lot of it has to do with it being boring. I read that there were quite a few scares in it, and I don't think I jumped at all. It was just one of those things where it was a boring hour and a half.
Yeah, I wanted to go see that, and I just never got around to it.
Yeah, my wife hated it, but in all fairness, she hates most things, including me. So,
Just a fun little story about your wife. We went and saw Age of Ultron with you guys.
yes, we did.
Yep. And your wife was talking to my wife and talking up the show Harper's Island.
Yeah.
And so last night we were like, okay, let's check this out. And so we watched the first episode and I looked at my wife about 10 minutes into it and I was like, are you digging this? And she's like, no. And I was like, me either. And we just shut it off.
I know. I didn't watch any of it with her. There was a couple nights ago, one of my buddies was over and we were playing Dice Masters, which I talked about a couple episodes ago.
Thanks for the invite.
It was like 4:00 and we're at work. But she was like, hey, do you guys mind if I just finish Harper's Island really quick? And I was like, no, we're not even watching TV. So she turns it on and I'm just kind of watching it out of the corner of my eye. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of not interesting at all.
Yeah, I didn't like it at all.
Yeah. So I don't even know what it's about. But I don't,
but in all fairness, I gave it maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah. I don't know. She doesn't have great taste. Except for men. She has a great taste in men.
Okay. Whatever.
Yeah. All right. All right, man. What are you into?
Well, I'm into something that we've talked about before. I think both of us have actually brought it up. Undateable. The first season got kind of dumped, last summer. And I didn't really hear a whole lot about it, coming in. The only reason I found out about it was that I'm a huge fan of Ron Funches. And so every time he would do an appearance anywhere, they would always pimp Undateable. So my wife and I started to like it, or to watch it. And we were pleasantly surprised at how much we liked it. And I mean, it's nothing special, especially the first season. They do a lot of things good. They don't do anything great. I mean, the writing's all right. The acting's, I mean, most of them are all stand-ups, so they're not like classically trained actors. So, I mean, it's all right. But the second season, it seems like the network has had a lot more faith in the show.
Yeah.
And they've been pimping it a little bit more. And it's a great example of a network giving a show a second season to really blossom. And it's been fantastic. I really like it. The characters are really starting to, I hate to use the word again, but it's the perfect word, blossom. Like you really are starting to, it's not just a funny show. It's a show that I actually am starting to care about the characters a lot. There's a lot of heart in the show, now in its second season. So as nerds often do, when you like something, you generally like to absorb everything adjacent to that.
Yeah.
And so in this case, like I said, most of the guys that star in the show are stand-up comedians. So Chris D'Elia, one of the stars of the show, just recently, released his new stand-up special on Netflix. So I was like, okay, well, I'll watch that. And he's funny in the show. Let's see what his stand-up's all about. I wouldn't recommend it. And I hate saying this because I've mentioned a ton of times before, and I mentioned a little bit earlier, I do dabble in it. So I do respect someone that can do that, but he just reminded me a lot of Dane Cook. Just
really?
His stage presence, the way he tells a story. Like Dane Cook is kind of infamous for taking what should be like a 30-second story or joke and turning into like a 5-10 minute story or joke. And he does the exact same thing. And it's really frustrating. I mean, I guess I could understand how that would come off as charming. But for me, I just like, I didn't like it at all. He did make a really funny Street Fighter reference, but other than that, it wasn't good. I wouldn't recommend it.
That's a bummer because I really like him on the show.
Yeah.
This is a show that you got me into last summer, actually, when you talked about it on the podcast. And I remember binging the first season, and I've been keeping up with the second season as well. And I really like it. It bums me out that Danny doesn't call Justin Baby Bird anymore.
I know, right? I was just thinking about that the other day. Isn't the bar supposed to be called the Baby Bird or Baby Birds or?
I know in the first did they rename it in an episode?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the first season.
Maybe, I don't know why they would have dropped that. I always laughed at that. I thought it was so funny. But yeah. I really like, Chris how do you say his last name?
D'Elia.
Yeah. I like him quite a bit. So it's a bummer to hear his stand-up's kind of crappy, but he's hilarious on the show. And the cast really comes together. You mentioned Ron Funches, and he's hilarious on the show. Yeah. I want to watch some of his stand-up.
It's great.
He had this line on one of the most recent episodes that I just laughed my ass off. It was something about babies, and he's like, a girl I date has to be into babies, both of the human and Muppet versions. And I thought that was so funny. Like, you don't get a Muppet Baby reference every day.
No, he's awesome. And
yeah, for sure.
From what I hear, they get to improv a lot, which I appreciate because they are stand-up guys, and they're just really funny. And they were on a recent episode of The Nerdist, and it's really great. I
actually just downloaded that last night. I haven't listened to it yet.
Yeah, it's really funny. The only person not on it, I think, is Chris D'Elia.
Really?
Actually. Yeah, but they do kind of trash talk him a lot, and that's kind of hilarious. Yeah.
If he's anything like the characters he plays on various things,
he is on a stand-up.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably kind of douchey.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen him on At Midnight before, and he's kind of douchey.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe it's just a stage presence thing, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, we won't see. I don't know why I said that.
All right. So our next segment, moving right along, is just kind of plainly titled Comics, where we spotlight just a particular comic that we want to talk about. I'll let Tyler go first because I know he wants to talk about a big one that got released this past Wednesday. So go ahead, Tyler. What comic are you reading?
So I talk about this comic all the time. Everybody knows I read it. Batman.
Yep.
Number 40, which is the end of Endgame. And I believe I talked about the first issue of Endgame when it came out back in, I believe, December. So it's a 6-issue arc. It just wrapped up last Wednesday. And even if you don't read comics, you probably saw headlines about this comic book everywhere. It was one of those rare comics that's actually reported on by mainstream media. So anytime that happens, I think that I really like seeing that because it puts the actual print in the public's eye, not just like the movies and the TV shows that we're familiar with that comic book characters are based on. So I always love seeing that. But without getting into spoilers, I won't spoil anything. It's a fantastic piece of, it's almost, I consider it literature. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
Some people would argue with me because, you know, you have the people that can't see past the pictures and all of that kind of stuff. But for me, it's Batman literature and it's awesome. And it really shows off Greg Capullo, the artist, and, Scott Snyder, the writer's talents. It's hard to talk about without getting into spoilers, but they wrote the perfect Batman Joker story through Endgame.
Yeah, for sure.
This issue just in 28 pages, it concludes everything beautifully. And if there were never another Batman Joker story, I'd be happy because this one just did it perfectly. And that won't happen. I mean, Batman and Joker will meet again at some point in the future. We all know that. But for now, this is just awesome. Scott Snyder's been my favorite comic book writer for quite a while now, and he just keeps delivering. So things with the Batman comic are kind of taking a sharp left turn over the next few months. Yesterday was Free Comic Book Day, and I didn't get to attend because I had to work, but I happen to know that, in one of the DC's Free Comic Book, they kind of gave a glimpse into what we can expect from the next few issues of Batman and the next story arc from Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. And it's a lot different than what we're used to, but I have complete, utter faith in both of or any of the talent involved because it's been so great.
Yeah, I think that, and I hate to be so knee-jerk, but I think that 10 years from now, people are going to be talking about Endgame like they do talk about Dark Knight Returns, Year One, as being one of the best Batman stories ever written.
I hope so, because I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think the one advantage that Dark Knight Returns has is that it's not considered canon. So it's like this separate story that people hold in high regard, whereas this is canon. And eventually I think some of the story that they did is going to be stomped on. It's hard to expand on that without spoiling anything, so I'll leave it alone. But with it being canon, I think that it might be a little bit more forgettable, but it won't be forgettable to like me or you. Yeah. It is one of the best Batman stories ever told. Yeah.
I actually, you mentioned the internet kind of going into a frenzy with this comic book. I literally had to delete somebody off Facebook because they almost spoiled this for me.
That's shitty.
Yeah. Okay. So I work a weird shift. So I work 11 to 7:30 every day, which is a weird shift. I love it personally because I'm a night owl. So it allows me to stay up until like 1 or 2 in the morning, and it's awesome. So I don't get to I get up and I go to work and what have you. So I don't get to go to the comic book store as quickly as some other people do. So our comic book store opens at 9 a.m. This dude that I'm friends with on Facebook, who is a big Batman fan as well, posts something at noon. So literally 3 hours after he could have picked up the comic book. And I was just like, screw you, man. I was pissed. I mean, I didn't read the whole status. I just kind of glanced at it, realized that he had spoiled it without actually physically reading what he wrote. And so I just deleted him out of like spite. I was just like, screw you, man. I mean, spoiler. Yeah. I mean, give it like 24 hours or something. I was pretty pissed about it.
Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat. I was seeing articles and everything, things like that everywhere. And I was like, there's no way I make it through this workday without somebody spoiling the end for me. So I went into my office and downloaded the comic to my phone and read it really quick.
Yeah.
So that I could have the element of surprise.
Well, I mean, I deleted that guy. Yeah. And then I kind of avoided IGN because they seemed like the worst offender when it came to that particular comic. And so I went to the comic book store, got it, went out to my car, read it, and then drove home.
All right, man. What comic are you into?
Well, I mentioned last episode that I'm trying to get through all my Marvel before Secret Wars gets released next week.
Oh shit, is it already next week?
Yeah, it is. The number 1 comes out next week. I looked it up because I wasn't quite sure, last episode.
Guess who's not going to get caught up with their Marvel by next week?
Yeah, I'm almost caught up. I just have a few issues of Amazing Spider-Man, and then I have a few issues of Fantastic Four, but it shouldn't be a problem to get through, by Wednesday. So I'm really looking forward to it. One of the comics that I am pretty well caught up on, it's one of the comics that I really enjoy, is Guardians of the Galaxy. I was only a few issues behind. So last week I started to get caught up on that. I believe it's 24 and 25 are part of the bigger, and Marvel does this, occasionally. They'll do like these smaller story arcs that go over into other comic books, other titles. And so 24 and 25 are part of what they call the Black Vortex story arc. And this seriously pissed me off because they do this every once in a while, where they'll take like 4 or 5 books and put this story arc in between all of them. And a lot of the times what they'll do is they do a really good job of kind of containing it. Yeah. If you just read Guardians, you're okay because they kind of contain that overarching storyline well in just Guardians. Or if you just read X-Men, you get the X-Men perspective of that story arc. This particular Black Vortex story arc wasn't done like that at all. 24 of Guardians is chapter 2. So you're only a little bit behind. But then 25 is chapter 7. So you literally have no idea what went on. And it pissed me off because I'm not a punk bitch. I buy a lot of comic books. So it's not like I'm just one of these guys that just reads Guardians.
Yeah.
I read all this other stuff, and it was just like weird books too, like, Nova, the Star-Lord standalone book. It was just like weird books got chapters of this story arc, and I'm not going to buy all that stuff just so I get all the pieces of the story arc.
Yeah.
You as a writer, as a creator, should make it where I could only read Guardians and still get a majority of the story. If I want the full story, if I'm really interested, then I'll go pick up these other issues and get the other pieces. But I feel like I wasted like $8 between these 2 issues because I got almost nothing out of them. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, nothing's more frustrating than reading like a comic that you've been following and not knowing what is going on.
Yeah.
I hate that. And that happens often with Marvel comics, I've noticed.
Yeah, they did it recently with, I think it was Guardians and X-Men as well. I think it was called The Trial of Jean Grey. But they did, like I said before, they usually kind of contain them within the book. So The Trial of Jean Grey wasn't as bad as the Black Vortex. But seriously, I had no idea. By 25, I had no idea what was going on. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, that sucks.
And I'm only speculating, but I would assume that Guardians does fairly well with the sales. Just by the popularity of the characters now that the movie was ridiculously popular, I would assume that that's one of their better selling books. And I would assume that Nova is not one of their better selling books. So I would speculate that that's what they were trying to do is, I'm going to create a storyline with 2 popular books with the X-Men and Guardians and try to get people to buy these other books just because they want the whole story.
Yeah.
Which is bullshit to me. I understand that they're a business, but they're screwing people like me that I do read a lot of Marvel. And I just don't want to read Nova. I'm not interested in that character. I'm not interested. I mean, I'm interested in Star-Lord, but I already read Guardian, so why would I read his own standalone book?
That's how I felt reading the first issue of Convergence that I talked about a couple weeks ago. It's just, I was so lost because the setup for this, DC-wide universe event was in a comic run that I don't read, and I don't remember which one it was, but if you're going to have this big thing like Secret Wars, only the DC version, that's going to impact every character, and including characters that you read, then you should, issue 1 should have everything you need to know about what to expect,
Yeah, and these big events, they do a really good job because they have the mini series.
Yeah.
That you can read that and you can get the kind of the cliff notes of what's going on. But if you also read Amazing Spider-Man, you'll get what's happening within this event to just Spider-Man. With these miniature ones, these miniature events, I feel like they screw you over.
Well, that was like, you let me borrow your graphic novelization of Civil War.
Yep.
And everything in that graphic novel was what you needed to know for the story.
Exactly.
To get the gist of the story. Yeah. Now, if you were reading comics at the time and you wanted to read like the Spider-Man,
it has its own.
Then you get a little bit more to the story and more on how it impacts that particular character. But if you just want the gist of Civil War, you can read that graphic novel, which is how it should be.
Yeah, for sure. So that just pissed me off, and I thought I would just kind of rant about that for a little bit. The books themselves, I suppose, are good. Yeah. But like I said, I don't really know because 24 was decent. I'm interested in the Black Vortex because basically the idea behind it is that you use it and if you already have powers, it kind of amplifies those powers. So it was kind of a neat concept to see these powerful beings like the mutants and, well, not, to a lesser extent, Guardians, and then kind of get super powers. And so that was kind of cool. But like I said, because it was broken down in these chapters and I didn't have access to all the other chapters because I wasn't going to spend $20 just to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
I was completely lost by 25.
Yeah, that blows. This is a tad off topic, but I'm really hoping that Secret Wars is better than Convergence has proven to be.
Sure.
Because I'm really interested in Secret Wars.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So hopefully it's good.
All right. So our next segment, I'll just go ahead and give it to Tyler because he kind of runs this one.
All right. Yeah, we're going to do Nerd News now, which is our segment in which we discuss all of the main nerdy topics that have come up in the news since the last time we recorded. It used to be bi-weekly, but now it's going to be weekly, which I'm really looking forward to.
Yep.
So since last week, there are 6 stories I want to bring up and talk about really quick, Pat.
Cool.
So the first one, I've kind of noticed we don't do a lot of video game news and nerd news unless it pertains to the Arkham Knight.
Yeah.
which I'm sorry for, but I think it's just one of those things where I'm biased because I'm really looking forward to this game. Like I'm super pumped for it. But they did release some information about this game this week. So Robin, Nightwing, Catwoman, and they hinted that Azrael are all going to be playable characters.
All right, cool. From the get-go or unlockable?
Yeah, I think from the get-go, and it has to do with combat. I don't know I don't know if you watched the trailer for it, but there's often times where Batman's attacking and then it's almost like Grand Theft Auto 5, like you can push a button and switch to the other character.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And I don't know exactly how that's going to work, but it's really interesting. It's pretty cool to think that you're going to be able to control all these characters in a story mode because the first 2 Arkham games are very much just Batman's point of view, and Robin pops up in Arkham City, and then there's been some downloadable content where you can play as other characters, but this is the first time they're going to be really into the story, which is pretty awesome. I like that the Arkham Knight is such a huge threat that you have to bring in all of these other superheroes, or they're not really superheroes, these other characters to help Batman, which I like.
Yeah, I kind of hope it's almost like Grand Theft Auto 5 where I really enjoyed that aspect of the game because a lot of times in video games, you'll be playing as a main character and you kind of have a guy that's helping you out. You'll be like, oh, go up with this rocket launcher and blow up this helicopter, and then you'll just see a cutscene of it, but you don't actually get to do it.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of cool that you got to switch characters when it became important for that next character. You got to play as that character. So I think that's cool. And I'd be interested if, well, I mean, I'm going to get the game either way, that'd be really cool if that's how they did it. I don't, like you said, I don't know if that's going to be how they're going to format it or not.
They didn't really expand on it or not, but that's what people are thinking. I wasn't going to talk about this. I didn't have this in my notes, but just another thing with Arkham Knight really quick is they announced that the season pass is going to be
I heard about that.
Yeah, $40.
Yeah.
And people were pissed because they didn't say what the season pass is going to include or anything.
Yeah.
Well, today they released what the season pass is going to include, and there's some interesting things, and I don't plan on getting the season pass. I'll just download what I want, but people still seem to be upset with the content that they're offering for such a large price. There's like a Barbara Gordon side mission where she's Batgirl, so it's before she becomes Oracle, and there's some Batman stuff, and you can drive all of the different Batmobiles over the last 75 years, and there's some cool stuff, but it seems like the price is a bit crazy for that.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move right along. So, sticking with the DC side of things, I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast. We probably did last year. TNT is developing a Teen Titans series, live action.
I think we've mentioned
and it was called Titans, and they're changing the title now to Blackbirds. And I guess Nerdist reported on what the lineup of that show is going to be. So, you're going to have Nightwing, Barbara Gordon, Raven, Starfire, Hawk, and Dove. And then Robin might be in it as well. And I'll be honest, even being a huge DC fan, I don't know a couple of those characters very well. But I am excited that there could be a live action series with Nightwing and Robin in it.
Yeah, that intrigues me, but I was never a big Teen Titans fan.
Yeah, I like the Teen Titans, and I think that the reason I have high hopes for this show is because it's going to be what it sounds like it could possibly be what I want Gotham to be. And Gotham is terrible.
Yeah, it's a chore.
I know, it's awful. It's really boring.
But definitely check out my reviews on our website, thenerdspodcast.com.
But the thing with these superhero shows, especially the DC version, is they want to tease these characters and they never actually, make good on the promises. Especially I think of Smallville. You took 11 years to finally see him in the suit. And Gotham, you just tease. And with this show, hopefully, you have Nightwing, you have Robin, you have all these characters that you like, and they're doing cool shit. That is what I'm hoping for. So,
all right, cool.
All right, moving on, we will talk about Spider-Man. This is a small news story, but I thought we'd bring it up just because we always talk about Spider-Man.
For sure.
The rumor that the new standalone movie, the title is going to be Spider-Man: The New Avenger, which I hate.
Yeah, for sure. That's dumb.
Yeah. So you had Captain America, the first Avenger, and I guess Spider-Man's the new Avenger. So I guess
I hate that. I mean, I get it. I mean, I get they're trying to reference the Marvel Cinematic Universe in a way.
I guess it's a way to tell mainstream moviegoers like, hey, Spider-Man was never in the Avengers or part of that universe, but now he is.
Yeah, exactly.
But you got to do it better than that.
It's
awful.
It's really bad. I hate it.
Hopefully it's just a rumor and it's something else, but I thought I'd bring that up.
Yeah. Did you hear about the, one of the guys is, the guy from Ender's Game, and I'm completely blank.
Asa Butterfield.
And then what's the, Tom Holland? Something like that.
Yeah, the kid from The Impossible.
Yeah. Are the two front runners.
Yeah, last week we talked about Asa Butterfield being the front runner, and then this other kid's name popped up as possibly being a front runner as well. Out of those two, who do you prefer? Or do you have a preference? I mean, they don't have huge body of works between them.
No, I think I'd go with Asa.
Yeah, I think I'd be fine either way.
Yeah,
to be honest. All right, so moving right along, this was pretty interesting, and I saw you posted this to the Facebook page. The rumor out there right now, and who knows if it's confirmed or not, but it's that X-Men Age of Apocalypse will be like the last film in the Bryan Singer universe of X-Men films, and then taking that into account, you would assume that means that Fox is going to reboot the franchise with a different universe after that movie. There's a lot of logistics that go into that, seeing as they're having a Deadpool movie, and then there's going to be a standalone Gambit movie, and how that kind of fits into their plans. But if this is the case, what do you think?
It's funny because when I first posted this, like a day earlier, I was thinking about this exact thing.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of coincidence. I thought it would be kind of cool because in Days of Future Past, Wolverine kind of wakes up.
Yeah.
And I thought that it would be kind of cool to cap off whatever they decide to be, which I guess it's going to be this movie, is going to be the end of that universe, to kind of have it be that day that Wolverine wakes up.
Yeah.
So I thought that would be kind of cool, to kind of show you that last scene as him walking into Professor Xavier's office and being the way to end the universe, to kind of tie that loop. But obviously, if this is going to be the last movie, that's not the way they're going to go.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'm happy with it. The First Class movies have been solid. That particular aspect of the franchise has been really great. So
yeah, I think they've gotten a little too convoluted with things. Like, we're meeting the X-Men characters we know and love in the next movie, like Jean Grey and Cyclops and Storm.
Nightcrawler.
But yeah, Nightcrawler. But because of all of the movies that have become before it, it has to take place in the 80s.
Yeah.
Which just kind of sets it off with this weird tone to me. So it'd be cool if they put a nice bow on all of these movies and then they can reboot it with a new cast and kind of go from there. I'd be interested in that.
Yeah. I mean, I get tired of reboots, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the X-Men universe is just so rich, and I feel like they haven't even tapped its potential.
No, for sure.
I don't think.
I mean, they haven't had a real good Gambit yet. So.
Yeah, that's on Fox though. They blow.
Yeah.
So they may never tap the full potential. It might be up to Marvel to eventually do that if they ever get the rights back.
Yeah.
All right. So moving right along, another quick news piece is that it's been announced that Kingsman 2 is in the works.
Yep. Very excited.
I'm sure we're both excited about that. We both gave it really good reviews whenever we reviewed it back in February. So that'd be interesting to see how that unfolds. And then the last one I have is Josh Trank dropping out of the Star Wars standalone, or they're calling it anthology movies. So
yep.
He's dropped out of his anthology movie. The rumor on the street is he was booted from his anthology movie because of all of the drama going on with his Fantastic Four directing. Apparently there was some behind the scenes drama and he doesn't really mesh well with big studios.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, this is his first foray into a big studio movie because he pretty much has just done Chronicle.
Yep.
And he didn't, I guess he clashed with the big brass a little bit in the direction of things, and they had to bring in some people to help finish it up. And you know, whenever Lucasfilm and Disney heard about this, they kind of pushed him out of the Star Wars movie because they didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah, it's a bummer because I'm not a huge Chronicle fan. I mean, it was a decent movie. Yeah. Again, I'm not a huge found footage fan, but from what I've seen of Fantastic Four, it looks really awesome.
Yeah.
And so I was really looking forward to his standalone movie.
Yeah, I was too. And I'm looking forward to Fantastic Four as well still. I'm glad that Lucasfilm caught it, if it is true early on, but I hope that whoever they announced to take his place is just as a unique choice as he was. I really have liked the directors they've gone with.
For sure.
They've announced so far, you know, like J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, Gareth Edwards. So hopefully they can keep the talent coming.
Yeah. It seems like they're trying to pick up and coming directors.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. So hopefully they keep going that route.
For sure.
All right, man. That's all I got for nerd news.
Awesome. So our next segment is just kind of a main topic. It kind of changes each episode. For this episode and probably a lot of the upcoming episodes, we're going to be reviewing a movie. This episode, we're going to review.
The season.
Yep. Summer movies. Well, not quite summer. Yeah. We're going to be reviewing Age of Ultron, Avengers Age of Ultron, which again, Tyler and I saw, what was it, Thursday?
Yep. Thursday night.
Yep. Which, we were all, really looking forward to it. And I think this movie is just going to print money. It's going to be ridiculous. So, yep.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to be doing for our main topic. So do you want me to go ahead and start off, Tyler?
It doesn't matter, but if you want to, that's fine.
All right. So I had a few problems with this movie.
Oh, we're going to start out with the negatives.
Yep. I feel like we talk about the positive and then just end on the negative, and I don't like how that kind of puts a sour taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start off with the problems. I actually have a spoiler alert. I have more problems than, things that I liked about this movie.
Uh-oh.
The first main thing that I didn't like about it was the fact that it felt much more like a solo superhero movie. And I know that sounds weird, but just stay with me. I'll explain. With these solo superhero movies, they have been building to a conclusion. Like with Phase 1, the Iron Man 2, Incredible Hulk, they were building to something. That something was Avengers.
Yeah.
And the first Avengers felt like it was a conclusion to that phase.
Yep.
Age of Ultron did not feel like it was a conclusion to anything.
Yep.
It felt like it was just continually building to, well, what will end up being Infinity Wars Part 1 and 2.
Yep.
So I was very disappointed with that. I didn't feel the satisfaction that I felt with the first Avengers, is because I don't think it concluded anything.
Since we saw Age of Ultron, I've been digesting it for a few days. I'm going to see it again tomorrow and see if it holds up for me. But something has seemed off.
Yeah.
And I think you just hit the nail on the head. And I think you just put it into words. Something seemed off, and I didn't know how I was going to put that into words for this review. But I think that's what it was. It just seemed a little rushed. Like in the first Avengers, like just one of my problems with it was Ultron wasn't very fleshed out. In the first Avengers, you had Loki, who had a whole nother movie to be fleshed out.
Yep.
Ultron is created in this movie and then
destroyed.
Well, you know,
Sort
and
of.
he's evolved through this movie.
Yeah.
And there's not enough time devoted to that, in my opinion. Yeah. I get what you're saying. Phase 2 had nothing to do with Ultron, or had nothing to do with what happens in this Avengers movie. I guess you could say Winter Soldier set it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But not enough. Not like the movies in Phase 1 set up the first Avengers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you brought up a good point, and it was actually the next thing that I was going to talk about, is the tempo of this movie is really off. Like, it's rushed. Like, at certain points, within 15, 20 minutes, Ultron is created. Ultron is something that comic book fans know who he is.
Yeah.
But if you're just a follower of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you have no idea who Ultron is. And so within 15, 20 minutes of this movie, he gets mentioned for the first time and he gets created and basically becomes a chase movie.
Yeah.
And so the tempo felt really rushed at times, but then at certain points, it felt like it came to a screeching halt, and it was almost borderline boring at some aspects of the movie. And then there was another battle and it felt rushed again. And then it came to a screeching, like it was very jarring. The tempo of the movie, I never really think it found its sweet spot, as far as the tempo was concerned. Did you like the Black Widow Hulk stuff?
I thought it was a little weird. I didn't mind it. Like, it wasn't something that put me off, but the first movie, she's kind of teased to have a bit of a interest in Hawkeye, which we figure out is not warranted.
Yeah.
And then in Captain America, you know, they flirt a little bit. Like, there's never a romance teased.
It seems like, I mean, even though they do kiss, it seems like they have more of a brother-sister type of relationship.
Yeah. And, you know, through the whole movie, she's trying to set him up with somebody. You know, and it's like a running gag. But the whole time I watched that movie, I was thinking like, oh, they're going to end up together somehow. And then in this movie, she's with Bruce Banner. So it's, you know, if you have this strong female character in the Marvel universe, why does she constantly need to be in a relationship?
Romance,
or like some kind of
tease a romance.
Yeah. It's just, I didn't mind it, but it's just one of those things I could have done without.
I completely agree. I never even thought about the whole, she's one of the few strong female characters in these movies, and why the hell does she always have to be, or at least tease a romantic relationship? She could just kind of be a loner and that'd be all right. But I liked certain aspects of it, but with what's been so satisfying with these movies is they don't just come out of the blue with something. And I felt like just out of left field, they came with this romance. Yeah, she kind of recruited him in the first movie, but for the most part, most of their interaction together has been in that first movie.
Yeah.
When she recruited him, and it wasn't a playful meeting. Like, I mean, she points a gun at him at one point. He kind of screws with her. And the only other time you really see them just one-on-one, he almost kills her. So I just don't, it just felt weird that all of a sudden, again, it kind of felt rushed.
Yeah. Well, so
all of a sudden that they had this romantic relationship.
What happened between the end of Winter Soldier and the beginning of this movie that they fell in love, or they started teasing the idea of a romance?
And I just don't, I don't understand why they couldn't have put something in like the Winter Soldier or something else. Now, I know Hulk movies are hard to do, and they've been discussing whether or not they're going to do another Hulk movie or not, but at least put him in. If you're going to do this, which Marvel has had these plans for God knows how long, so why wouldn't you plan on doing this romantic relationship, put him in a cameo or do something with the character so it's not completely just out of left field. That's what really bothered. And not the fact that they had a relationship, but the fact that it just felt like, okay, I guess they're together now. And it was really funny because there was a particular scene where he gets out of the shower and she's like, well, I should have just joined you. And he seemed almost as confused as I was. I was like, where the hell is this coming from? It was just really weird. There was a scene at the end where she pushes him down the hall. I thought that was a pretty awesome scene.
Yeah, like that was good.
Yeah, I enjoyed that, but I just thought that whole relationship was a little out of left field and a little confusing.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, with the Hulk and with Bruce Banner, you have this character. The only time we've seen him since the last Avengers movie was in the stinger of Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he doesn't do anything worthwhile on that. You know, he's just, it's a gag. So you have this character that you didn't flesh out at all throughout phase 2, and then you expect us to be emotionally invested in it, like, in that way. And it doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, on that note, how'd you feel about the whole Hawkeye?
Oh, I loved it. I loved that quite a bit because part of my brain knows that it was forced because, you know, Jeremy Renner was very vocal about his displeasure with the first Avengers movie and how he was under Loki's mind control for half of it. So I feel like Joss Whedon felt pressured to give Hawkeye a lot more to do in this movie. And
it almost felt like they constantly were justifying why he was there.
Yeah. I mean, he has a really good line in the climax of the movie
when
he's talking to Scarlet Witch that I loved. But I thought that was a really good way to flesh out his character without giving too much screen time to him.
Yeah.
Because you have all these other characters you're interweaving, and it makes you care about Hawkeye a little more.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was okay with it.
Yeah, I prefer that over the Hulk Black Widow stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it did slow down the movie. Like I said, the tempo problems, were definitely evident during this. It was really just one long scene.
And then, having Black Widow be the only person who knew about his family, it kind of gives credence to the first movie where, you know, it was almost like they teased a romance, but then you're like, oh, it wasn't a romance. Or they really are good friends. I mean, she knows his personal life, which no one knows. And so they kind of rebound there a little bit, but I was fine with it.
My next problem, I feel like I just made a list of all the negative things, but it felt bloated to me. Like they've tried to fit too much into this one movie. And I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying with, it feeling like a solo superhero movie, like it was just building to something else. I felt like they tried to squeeze way too much into this movie to kind of build to phase 3 and eventually the Infinity Wars.
I didn't feel like it was bloated because I understood what was going on. But like my wife, I saw this movie with my wife who's never read a comic book in her life. She doesn't know what the Infinity Stones are. She doesn't know the backstory already. So she was confused by some of the plot points because they did cram a lot into it. But for me and you know, when they talk about the Infinity Stones, I don't need an explanation. I know what the Infinity Stones are. So I'm moving right along with it. It's like reading a comic book to me. But I would say the normal moviegoer could probably be a little bit confused by all the stuff they put into it.
Yeah. With the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver stuff, and then the Thor going into the pool, that was kind of weird. And I felt like that was almost for non-comic book fans to explain the Infinity.
I didn't get the pool.
Yeah, I mean, it was
that seemed a little shoehorned.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I didn't understand that. That I don't feel like they explained it well enough, at least for me.
Well, he was trying to get back into his dream because of the Scarlet Witch.
But what was so special about that pool?
I don't remember why.
Right?
It was somehow he was able to get back into his dream if he went into the pool, or I don't know. If listeners, if you know the reason he went into the pool, just email us at thenerdyourlooking4@gmail.com. Because I think that's why he went into the pool, was that he was trying to get back into his dream to figure out. And then that's how he finds out about Vision and the Infinity Stones and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was, the Joss Whedon's kind of way of catching up non-comic book fans with what was going on.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was really cool how they intertwined a lot of different stuff, like Claw being in it. What is his first name? Julius?
Yeah.
Julius Claw being in it. Maybe the normal moviegoer would be like, why'd that person show up for one scene and you never hear from him again? But, for us, we know he's Black Panther's main villain.
Yeah.
And
he's awesome.
Things like that, made me giddy. I love that they can do that in this universe now. I mean, we live in a world where we have a movie that has the Vision in it.
Yeah.
That's just crazy to me. I mean, there's definitely maybe problems with bloating, like you were saying, because they fit a lot into it. But also I think that they did a lot of things gracefully, the way they intertwined characters. Well,
you mentioned Ultron felt a little rushed. How'd you feel? Other than that, how did you feel about the character in general?
I loved Ultron.
Yeah.
Ultron was great. I really love what James Spader brought to it. But like I said, I just wish he had been fleshed out a little more.
Yeah. I thought that he was great in the aspect of he felt like a worthy foe, especially when, spoiler alert, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were helping him.
Yeah.
He felt like he had his own team of Avengers, and I felt like he was a worthy foe. Towards the end, he seemed almost like a nuisance once they got the Vision. He didn't seem as powerful. It was more of the whole, I guess, town going up into space. That was more of a ticking clock kind of aspect to the movie. And I thought that was more prevalent than Ultron, because for a while there towards the climax, he's gone and you don't see him for a while. So I think once they created the Vision, he's so ridiculously powerful that Ultron just didn't become quite the foe that he was earlier in the movie. But I did like how he felt like at this point they're a team, and I don't see any opponent that would be foolish enough to face them, but he seemed to be the worthy opponent. So I did like that aspect of it. I would have appreciated it more if he wasn't such a wisecracker.
That was the thing. He was a lot funnier than I thought he'd be.
Yeah, you would think like a all-knowing AI wouldn't bother himself with cracking jokes and stuff like that. Like he makes a reference like, this is exactly when I'm going to tell you all my evil plan.
Yeah.
Like you would think somebody, like, I wouldn't think of an AI to even make a movie reference. And like it felt really weird.
See, I didn't think too much into it, I guess. I thought it was funny. I thought that
it was funny and I enjoyed it. I just thought that it just didn't fit the character.
Yeah.
But I mean, I enjoyed the villain. I thought he was great, and James Spader did an awesome job. It's tough to, as an actor, I think it would be really difficult to try to convey all those emotions when you don't have, I mean, his mouth was moving, but you don't have any like body language or any type of that. You have to do a lot of stuff.
Didn't he do motion capture? I thought he did mocap.
But I think he did, but I mean, it wasn't that prevalent because I mean, it's just a robot.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's only so much you can do with body language in that particular aspect of it.
Yeah.
But I just thought he had to convey a lot of the emotion through his voice, and I thought he did a really good job with that.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we should probably move on to stuff that we liked about the movie. I mean, I did mention that I enjoyed Ultron a lot. I mean, the action scenes, of course, were great. If I ever get to the point where I'm bored with the Avengers and the action, just kill me because I'm probably dead inside at that point anyways. I mean, the action was amazing. There was a lot of good comic relief. I laughed a lot in this movie, especially you mentioned the Hawkeye with the scene with Scarlet Witch. I thought that was really well written line. It was almost like they were poking fun at themselves at how ridiculous this whole scenario was, and the fact that Hawkeye is inherently kind of a silly character. So I liked that. It was kind of a meta line. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, I mean, the action was really great.
Yeah, I love the action. And like you said, the humor was great. I heard a lot of people saying that they thought this was funnier than the first Avengers, because the first Avengers has its funny moments too. I wouldn't say that necessarily, but there were definitely moments where I laughed out loud. And I love that this movie can do that. It can switch from, the quips and the comedy to really great action that has you on the edge of your seat.
And I think that they intertwined the comedy within the Hulk and Iron Man scene where he's punching him and he goes, go to sleep. I laughed so hard at that. That was so funny. Yeah, and I thought that scene was, of course, just amazing. I loved how they kind of teased it earlier. What do you call it? Victoria or
Veronica?
Veronica. And they kind of teased it earlier in the movie, and I thought that was great. I really enjoyed that scene a lot because I was kind of curious. I'd stayed away from a lot of the spoilers. I knew that it was going to happen, but I was kind of curious how they were going to get to that, and I really loved that scene. It was really great.
I loved it as well. I had a feeling going into this movie that the Hulkbuster armor would kind of steal the show at a certain point because it's just such a cool thing to see. I actually read this quote from Joss Whedon the other day on why it was called Veronica. And I'm not familiar with Archie comics, but it's in reference to the Veronica of Archie comics because Bruce Banner used to love Betty Ross. Yeah. And apparently Veronica in Archie comics is like the polar opposite of Betty Ross.
Oh, really?
Characteristics. So that's why they called it Veronica.
Well, that's kind of a deep cut.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's one of those things where I don't know shit about Archie, but I thought, there's trivia for you, I guess.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that scene. It's probably my favorite scene of the whole movie. I really enjoyed it. And like I said, there was a lot of comedy while they were fighting him. And I thought that it worked really well within the constructs of the movie because Bruce Banner feels guilty every time that he has to Hulk out. And I liked how they kind of use him as a last resort, the Code Green. I really liked that part of it. So I liked how the character development, he was obviously felt really guilty that he destroyed this pretty much a big chunk of this city, and he probably injured, if not killed, people in the process. So, and it kind of is the catalyst to later in the movie, towards the end. I'm not going to spoil it, but it definitely plays a huge part at the end of the movie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So do you want to, because that's about all I've got for this movie. Do you want to give star ratings and then kind of talk a little bit more spoiler stuff?
It's up to you. I mean, I have spoilery things I can talk about, or I'm good with giving a star rating.
Well, how about we just give a star rating, and then that'll be the end of the episode as far as people that haven't seen it or don't want it to be spoiled. And then we'll just kind of go into our spoiler-esque part of the episode.
Okay, that works.
All right, so you go ahead.
All right, so I feel like we spent a lot of time on the negative and not a ton of time on the positive, so it might be surprising, but I'm giving this 4 stars.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. There were definitely issues with, like, that we talked about, and I feel bad that I didn't say as many positive things as I chimed in with the negative. But all in all, it was a really fun movie for me. With, like, the same with Guardians. Like, I loved Guardians because it was such a fun movie to watch, and I had a blast watching this. And while there were issues, and I'm sure that maybe some of these issues would be more prevalent the more and more I watched this movie, just my experience Thursday night was that it was a lot of fun, and I can't wait to watch it again tomorrow. So for now, it's going to be 4 stars.
Okay, cool. It sounds like you enjoyed it a little bit more than I did. I would agree that it is a fun movie. Obviously, I had quite a few problems with it. I hate to judge it from the first Avengers, but I just think the first Avengers is just as much fun. Yeah. But I think it's a more solid, kind of a crisper movie, as far as the crafts is concerned. So I'm going to go ahead and give Age of Ultron 3 stars.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. I thought you were going to go 3.5.
No.
3 is pretty low.
I really debated if we did have quarter stars, I probably would have given it to it through in 3/4.
Really?
Yeah.
You really didn't like it, huh?
I mean, I enjoyed it. I'll see it again, obviously, and I'll definitely buy it. But I mean, it wasn't my favorite movie.
What would you give the first Avengers?
Probably it holds up really well. I'd give it 4.5. I really enjoyed it.
And that's what I would give it, 4.5. And I like this one a lot, just not as much as the first one. So that's where I'm giving it the 4. And I think that it might be one of those things too. The more I watch it, I'm going to have a better take on it tomorrow after I see it again. And then after it comes out on Blu-ray, I'm sure I'll watch it a few more times. So I'm curious to see how it holds up in my opinion. But for now, I'm
hoping it's one of those movies that I was too hard on it to begin with. The expectations going in.
That's the thing with movies like this that we look forward to is definitely the expectations.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm hoping that, if I do see it again in the theaters, which I'm planning on, maybe seeing it in IMAX, and then obviously I'll be buying it when it comes out on Blu-ray. So I'm hoping that maybe I was just too hard on it. Generally, to be fair, it usually goes the other way.
Yeah.
I usually find more flaws in it, but I'm hoping that I was just too hard on it because of my expectations for it.
Yep, for sure.
So, nerd favorite.
All right. So nerd favorite. We'll do this really quick. We do this every week. We take turns asking each other what our favorite blank is because nerds have favorite everything. So This week we talked a little bit about the X-Men universe and Bryan Singer kind of putting a bow on it with Age of Apocalypse. So I'm going to ask you what your favorite X-Men movie is.
All right, cool.
So I'll give you time to think about it and I'll go ahead with my answer. So for the longest time, X2 was my favorite comic book movie of all time until the Batman stuff started happening. And then we had this whole huge resurgence of comic characters and movies. And that happened with the X-Men movies as well. We kind of got shitty stuff with X3 and X-Men Origins Wolverine. And then we kind of rejuvenated with First Class and Days of Future Past. And I think that my favorite out of all of these is going to be Days of Future Past. So hopefully it's not one of those knee-jerk things. I mean, it's been a year since that movie came out. Sure. So it's had time to simmer in my brain a little bit. But I mean, we reviewed it, so you can go back through our archives and listen to the review of that movie. But I loved it. And I think one of the reasons I loved it is because it set a lot of things straight that happened in the bad movies that I didn't like. So X3 and Wolverine. So I would say that's probably why. But then again, I mean, there's just so much to love in that movie as well, with all the characters and the time travel. And, you have Sentinels in the future, which is great. You get a mixture of the new and the old cast and just so many things done right in that movie. And, I would say that's why it's my favorite X-Men movie. All
right, cool. Yeah, that's a good choice. I'm not a huge time travel guy, as I've talked about a lot. I do like that movie. The way they do time travel is really simple. Like, this is how they're going to do it. And they don't spend a lot of time kind of making it more complicated than it needs to be. So I definitely appreciated that. My favorite X-Men movie is, it kind of goes back and forth because it's really which one I watched the most recent.
Yeah.
It's either between X-Men First Class or X2. I really enjoy the Nightcrawler stuff in X2. Oh, that scene where he breaks into the White House is probably one of my favorite scenes of the whole franchise. I love it. And I'm definitely looking forward to young Nightcrawler in the new X-Men movie. But if I had to make one choice, I think I would have to go with First Class.
Yeah.
It just kind of builds the universe, even though it isn't the first X-Men movie, but obviously it being the prequel, it kind of builds the universe. And I just really like the actors. Michael Fassbender is one of my favorite actors working today. So I just think they're all fantastic in this movie. I like to see Hank McCoy before he's really the beast.
Yeah.
And I'm not a huge Chelsea Grammer fan. So Chelsie. What did I say?
Chelsea.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Close enough. I'm really bad with names. Yeah, I mean, it's a solid movie. And I think the ending, where Xavier becomes paralyzed, I think that's the way they did it is fantastic. It was one of those things that even though you knew it was coming, it still kind of caught you by surprise, which is just because it was just excellently done by the writers and director and whatnot.
Yeah, no, First Class is great. It kind of hit restart on the whole franchise and kind of got things back on track. And of course, directed by Matthew Vaughn, who I love.
Yeah, for sure.
He does a great job with it. So good choice.
Yep. So I think that'll about wrap it up for this episode.
That it does.
As always, you can follow us on Twitter at The Nerds Podcast. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/The Nerds Podcast. Check out our new YouTube channel, The Nerds You're Looking For, on YouTube. I'm pretty sure that's the only place that you can find the YouTube channel. Email us, thenerdsyou'relooking4@gmail.com. Vote for us for Podcast of the Month. Voting just started a couple of days ago for May, so definitely do that. We really appreciate that. Rate, review, subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, all the great podcast directories. And definitely check us out at the Indie PopCon coming up in the end of June. I think it's June 29th through the 31st.
Nope. I don't
What?
I don't. I have it on my calendar. Give me one sec.
Okay.
Let's see. 26th through the 28th.
Oh, I was way off.
There is no such thing as June 31st.
Okay, cool. That's why I said it with such hesitation, was because I wasn't sure if there was 31 days in June. But anyways, definitely check us out there. We will not be there the 29th. I think that's about it. Is there anything I forgot?
Nope.
Google Plus.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We can't forget that.
Nope, definitely not. I think that's about it.
Sweet, man.
For Patrick Kuhn,
Tyler Hunt.
we are the nerds you're looking for. Take it easy, guys.
See you guys later.
All right, so spoilers.
Yep.
So what'd you want to bring up, Tyler?
I guess my big thing that I was kind of iffy on, like I'm pumped for this movie did a really good job of getting me excited for Phase 3, which maybe says something about the movie being a trailer for Phase 3 with the Infinity Stones and yada, yada, yada. But at the end of this movie, you get the reveal of pretty much what is going to be, I guess, the new Avengers lineup in a way. Because Thor goes and fucks off somewhere, and Tony Stark goes on and fucks off somewhere. And so it's basically, and then Hulk goes on and fucks off somewhere. Yeah. So it's basically Captain America, Black Widow, Falcon, War Machine, Vision, and Scarlet Witch. Yeah. Which is a strange lineup for me.
Yeah, I was not a fan of Iron Patriot. War Machine.
War Machine?
Yeah. They give him so many different names. I was not a fan of him becoming an Avenger.
I'm fine with that. I really like that you have these characters you can weave in and out, like I keep saying, so like whenever the final battle's going on and War Machine just comes in, it's like, yeah, of course War Machine would be there. Why the fuck would he not?
Yeah. I thought that was awesome, but then him becoming Avenger, I just didn't, I didn't like that because I don't know. I mean, I'm not a huge, War Machine historian. I'm sure he was in the Avengers because, I mean, almost every Marvel character has been in the Avengers at one point. So
that's what I'm saying is kind of cool about it is, you know, some Avengers lineups are better than others. Yeah. And there's been all sorts of lineups throughout Marvel's history. So I like that they can do that. But at the same time, it's like, well, where the fuck is Thor and Iron Man and Hulk going? Like, maybe those are the questions.
Well, I mean, there's another Thor movie coming out. Yeah. Is there another Iron Man?
No.
I didn't think so.
But he's going to be in Civil War.
Yeah. But he has to be.
But I'd be surprised if he shows up as Iron Man. It almost sounds like, I bet he spends most of the movie as just Tony Stark.
Which is one of the reasons I liked Iron Man 3. But yeah, whatever.
I'm just curious how Robert Downey Jr. is going to be used in Phase 3. So is Civil War going to be the last time we see him for a while? Is he even going to be in Infinity War? All right, here's a question that they never answered, and I just thought of this, and maybe you have an answer for me. So, in Iron Man 3, he's done as Iron Man. Start of Age of Ultron, he's Iron Man again, and I don't know why.
I don't think he was ever...
Doesn't he, like, blow everything up?
He blows it up, but I think he's just kind of starting from scratch because he doesn't need the power source anymore. He fixed himself or whatever it is.
I just interpreted it a different way. I thought like he's done.
No, I never thought that he was done.
I thought that this movie was going to be like, this is what pulls him back into being Iron Man was like, you know, he creates Ultron and he feels responsible for it. So he needs to be Iron Man again, but he's just Iron Man at the beginning of the movie.
I never forgot that he was ending as Iron Man.
Yeah.
At the end of Iron Man 3. I think he realized that he was getting a little carried away, and then he was just kind of trying to start from scratch.
Yeah.
And do it a different way. Like, I feel like he was tied to being Iron Man, and that's one of the reasons I really like Iron Man 3 was that he realized that he could do it as Tony Stark, that he didn't have to be Iron Man.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons I really enjoyed that movie. So I think that was just him kind of realizing that he'd gotten a little ahead of himself, and then he got a little carried away. So I never believed that he was not going to be Iron Man anymore.
Well, I didn't believe he was not going to be Iron Man again because I knew there was another fucking Avengers movie coming out and he's going to be in it. I was just thinking that at that point in time, Tony Stark is saying, I'm done.
No, I never thought that.
See, I don't know. That's how I interpreted it. What else? So I don't want to rush ahead if there's more things in the plot that we want to talk about, but what about this? It's not really a stinger because it's mid credits, but I guess it would still be a stinger. The Thanos.
Yeah, I was super pumped about that.
Yeah.
Because I had heard something, and maybe it was just a misdirection. Obviously, it was a misdirection that Josh Whedon said that it wasn't going to be a stinger.
They said there wasn't going to be anything after the credits.
Oh.
So this was technically not after the credits. It's in the middle of the credits.
Yeah.
But it made me pee myself a little bit because it was just so awesome seeing him reach his hand into the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah, as soon as I saw it, I was just like, oh shit.
I actually saw this thing with an interview with Kevin Feige the other day, and you remember in the first Thor, you can vaguely see the Infinity Gauntlet in Thor, Odin's like trophy room or whatever.
Yeah.
So somebody asked him if that was just like they rewrote it a little bit so that, you know, the stones aren't all together and Thanos has the Infinity Gauntlet. He's like, no, one of them's the left hand and one of them's the right hand.
Oh, yeah.
So there's another Infinity Gauntlet in Odin's chamber or whatever that it looked like it had the Infinity Stones, but I mean, they could rewrite that however they want.
Yeah.
As they get closer to Infinity War. But I think it's really cool that through phase 1, we kind of got a couple Infinity Stones, and through phase 2, we got a couple Infinity Stones, and then there's still 2 that are missing, which I'm sure will pop up through phase 3. So I really dig what they're doing there. Yeah.
It was funny because my wife and I had a conversation about it earlier today. I was like, well, one of them's the Vision. Yeah. He has it on his forehead. She called it his yellow eye.
That sounds about right.
And I was like, yeah. And the other one, the purple one. She's like, the purple one. I was like, yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy. She's like, oh, that's one of those things too. I was like, are you kidding? Have you even seen the movie? It's
like, yeah, Brittany has watched every single one of these movies with me, and I had to explain it to her the same way. I'm like, well, we saw one of them in the second Thor movie. Yeah. And there's one in Guardians, and then the Tesseract from the first one, and the one on Vision's forehead. Yeah. So, but yeah, she just didn't get it, which is what worries me a little bit for the average moviegoer, if they're kind of understanding that.
Anyways.
Oh, well, fuck them.
So is there any other spoilers that you want to?
Where do you think Hulk's fucking off to?
I think he's just gone.
I was hoping that he fucks off to Planet Hulk, but I don't think the Quinjet could get him there.
No, I mean, I know that there had been rumors that's if they were going to do another Hulk movie, that's the Hulk movie that they would.
That was kind of a weird scene for me, is watching the Hulk curl up in the cockpit of that Quinjet and just go wherever he's going.
Yeah. I mean, like I mentioned,
it seems like it would make more sense for Bruce Banner to do that instead of the Hulk.
Yeah, but he's taken a lot of strides since the Incredible Hulk movie. Yeah, he's gotten to the point where he's more of a superhero than just kind of a guy, just a huge guy that smashes thing. Yeah. So I mean, he's been able to control it. Yeah. I liked that because it worked within the movie. I mean, because he does feel guilty. Bruce Banner feels guilty after something happens, and they kind of use him as a last resort. So I appreciated it was kind of building towards that. Yeah. So do you have an opinion on Quicksilver dying? I liked it. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with Joss Whedon's known for killing off characters. I guess he'll have his own show later this year. But I mean, I liked Aaron Taylor Johnson's portrayal of it. It was different. No, I don't like him. Oh, he's not a good actor. You didn't like his portrayal in that movie? I hated his accent. His accent was stupid. I liked the accent. I thought it was fine, but it's not like I'm going to miss the character. I liked how when you do something like that, there are stakes. Yeah. Like when you have all these big characters, you just assume that they're just going to make it. And obviously, I mean, it was a character that we just found out about, but it's a pretty big character within the Marvel universe. So to kill off a character like that, it provides stakes for the other movies that nobody's untouchable sort of thing. And I liked how he sacrificed himself for Hawkeye because they kind of had that thing going back and forth throughout the whole movie. So it worked in that aspect. Plus, I mean, if Hawkeye died right there, that would be pretty shitty because we just learned that he had this secret family and little kids and it was going to be his last mission and she's pregnant again. It would have been pretty shitty. I mean, it would have been satisfying to know that, I mean, he did the right thing and he saved, this little boy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it would have been it would have been heartbreaking.
Yeah. I mean, Quicksilver doesn't have any ties to anything except for Scarlet Witch. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much all I've got to say spoiler wise. Do you have anything you want to talk about?
No, I think we kind of covered all of it.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing it again. So
all right, cool.
See how it holds up.
All right.